Cowboy gave his only horse to a wounded Apache woman. What she offered him was beyond imagination. Elias Boone lived where maps stopped trying. His little cabin sat alone at the edge of the high desert, with only sagebrush, rocks, and a long stretch of red sand around it. The wind never fully rested out here. It always moved, always whispered, always carried dust that found its way into every crack of wood and every seam of cloth. Elias had built the cabin with his own hands after the ranch was gone. The ranch had been his father's pride. Wide fields, a small herd, a corral strong enough to stand against any storm. Then one bad season turned into another. Then men came, not a fair fight, not even a clear reason. When it was over, the barn was ash, the fence was broken, and the land felt like it had been robbed of its heartbeat. So Elias left, not far but far enough to stop remembering every fence post. Now he lived small. A few tools, a worn blanket, a kettle, a rifle he kept clean. And one thing he treated like family, his horse. Dust was a tall, brown gelding with a white mark on his nose and eyes that seemed to understand more than most people. Dust had carried Elias through storms and heat, through lonely nights and long days when the world felt too quiet. Some men talked to their horses like they were furniture. Elias talked to Dust like he was a friend, maybe because he had no one else to talk to. That evening, Elias rode toward the trading post at Red Hollow, a rough little place where a few buildings clung to life like stubborn weeds. He carried 2 sacks of dried meat and a small bundle of hides tied behind the saddle. Trade was not easy these days. Folks held tight to what they had. Red Hollow was busy in a tired sort of way. Men leaned against posts. Women carried water. A wagon creaked as it rolled past. Elias kept his head down and his words short. He traded his goods for flour, salt, lamp oil, and a small roll of clean cloth. While he was there, he heard the usual talk. A miner said he saw strange lights near the western canyon. Another man laughed and said it was swamp gas, even though there were no swamps for 100 miles. A third man claimed the canyon was cursed and that the Apache avoided it for a reason. Elias listened but did not join in. People in towns talked about anything that broke the boredom. Strange lights, ghost stories, lost treasure, it was always something. He tightened the straps on his supplies, mounted Dust, and left before the sun fully dropped. The trail home was familiar. It cut through dry brush and narrow ridges where the rock looked like melted iron. The sky turned purple, then deep blue. Stars began to show up like quiet lanterns hung high in the dark. Elias rode with a steady pace, letting Dust choose the safest ground. He liked that feeling, moving through the desert without hurry, like the night itself was a blanket over the world. Then the wind shifted. Dust lifted his head. His ears turned forward. Elias felt it too, not danger exactly, something different. A strange stillness beneath the wind, like the desert was holding its breath. He slowed the horse. "Easy, boy," he murmured. Dust did not spook, but he stopped and sniffed the air. That was when Elias heard it, a sound that did not belong out here. At first it was so weak Elias thought it might be a coyote crying far away. But then it came again, closer, not an animal, a voice, a human voice. Elias swung down from the saddle, keeping one hand on the reins. The darkness was thick, but the stars gave enough light to see shapes. A clump of rocks, a dry creek bed, a line of brush. The voice came again like a breath torn into words. Elias moved carefully, stepping around stones. His boots made soft, crunching sounds in the sand. Then he saw her. A woman lay near the edge of the creek bed, partly hidden by brush. Her hair was black and dusty. Her clothing was torn and stained dark. She was still, except for the small rise and fall of her chest. Elias' first thought was that it might be a trap. That thought came fast and sharp because the frontier taught people to fear tricks. A lone injured person could be bait. And this woman, Elias recognized her by her features and clothes, was Apache. The land was full of old anger between settlers and tribes. Elias had seen enough to know that pain could turn anyone hard. He had also seen kindness from people who had every reason not to show it. He crouched a few feet away, watching. Her eyes opened slowly. They were dark, unfocused, but alive. She tried to speak. Only a cracked whisper came out. Elias held up his hands, palms open. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said quietly. "Can you move?" She tried to push herself up. Her arm shook. She fell back with a small sound, part pain and part frustration. Elias looked around, no torchlight. No riders, no movement in the brush. Still, danger could hide in the dark. He stepped closer anyway. The woman's breathing was uneven. Her side rose wrong like a rib might be hurt. There was a cut along her temple and dried blood on her cheek. Elias swallowed. If he left her here, she would not last the night. The cold would take her, or thirst, or something worse. He told himself the same thing he always did when he faced a hard choice. Do the right thing, then deal with whatever follows. He reached into his supplies and pulled out the roll of clean cloth. He tore off a strip and dipped it in his water skin. Carefully, he wiped her temple. She flinched but did not fight him. He wrapped the cloth around her head and tied it gentle. Her eyes stayed on him the whole time, like she was trying to understand him. Elias checked her arms and legs. No obvious break, but her right leg was swollen at the ankle, and the way she held her side told him she could not ride hard or walk far. The nearest Apache lands were a long distance. The nearest town was even farther, and that town would not welcome her. Elias looked back at Dust. Dust stood calm, but the horse's eyes were alert, tracking the world around them. Elias felt his chest tighten. Without Dust, he was stranded. He could not haul supplies, could not travel to trade, could not escape if trouble came. That horse was his life, but this woman's life was slipping away right now. Elias took a slow breath. He could carry her on the horse and walk beside them, but she was weak. She might fall, and if she fell, he might not get her up again. Another choice pressed into his mind. Send her with Dust. Let the horse carry her where she needed to go, then Elias would walk home alone. It sounded foolish. It sounded dangerous. It sounded like the kind of decision people remembered right before they regretted it. He looked at the woman again. She was barely holding on. Still, she tried to lift her head, like pride would not allow her to stay helpless. Elias rose and walked to Dust. He stroked the horse's neck. "You always did more than I asked," he whispered. Then he returned to the woman and gently slid an arm behind her shoulders. "Can you sit?" he asked. She nodded weakly. Elias lifted her carefully. She winced but did not cry out. He carried her to Dust, then helped her up onto the saddle. She swayed, and Elias steadied her with one hand while holding the reins with the other. He tightened the saddle strap and checked the packs to make sure they would not slide. The woman's hands were shaking. Elias guided them to the reins. "Hold tight," he said. "I'm going to point you west. There's a canyon trail. Follow it until you see the split rocks. Stay near the shadows, away from open ground." She stared at him like he was speaking another language, but then she understood the direction in his voice. He pulled the water skin from his belt and pressed it into her hand. "Small drinks," he warned. She clutched it. Elias stepped back. This was the moment. He could still change his mind. He could still keep his horse and walk away and pretend he never found her. Instead, he lifted his hand and lightly tapped Dust's flank. "Go on, boy," he said, voice rough. "Take her." Dust hesitated as if he did not want to leave Elias. Then Dust moved forward, slow at first, then steady, carrying the wounded woman into the night. Elias watched until the horse became a shadow among shadows. He stood alone in the desert, the wind brushing his face, the silence returning like a heavy curtain. For a long time he did not move. Then he turned toward home and began to walk. Each step felt heavier than the last, not because the ground was hard, because the choice he had made was now real. And somewhere in the far distance, above the dark line of the western canyon, a faint light flickered once, like a star blinking in the wrong place. Elias did not see it, but the desert did, and something else did too. Elias walked through the night with no horse and no clear plan. The desert felt larger without Dust beside him. Every sound seemed louder. Every shadow seemed deeper. The wind pushed against him as if testing his strength. He kept walking west at first, then slowly turned toward home. He knew the land well enough to survive on foot, but it would take days instead of hours. The moon rose late. When it did, it painted the sand in pale silver. Elias rationed his water carefully. He could not waste even a single drop now. As he walked, his mind returned again and again to the woman. He wondered if she had reached the canyon safely. He wondered if Dust had found the right path. He trusted that horse more than most men, but still, the desert was cruel. By dawn, Elias felt the weight of exhaustion pressing down on him. His boots were filled with sand. His throat burned. He found a narrow ridge that offered a little shade and sat down to rest. He closed his eyes only for a moment. A strange hum woke him. It was soft, almost like wind passing through metal. Elias sat up quickly. The air felt different, not colder, not warmer, just charged. He stood and scanned the horizon. Nothing. Then he saw it. Far to the west, near the direction of the canyon, a faint blue glow shimmered above the land. It flickered once, then steadied. Elias narrowed his eyes. The glow was not like fire. It did not dance or spread. It held its shape, almost like a lantern behind thin cloth. He remembered the talk at Red Hollow, strange lights. He shook his head. The desert could play tricks on a tired mind. Still, something in his chest tightened. Without dust, he had planned to return home. But now his feet turned west again. He told himself it was simple. He just wanted to make sure the woman survived. That was all. The walk took the rest of the day. The land grew rougher as he neared the canyon. Tall stone formations rose like broken teeth from the earth. The air felt cooler there, trapped between the high walls of rock. By late afternoon, Elias reached the outer edge of the canyon trail. He paused. The place felt too quiet. Even birds avoided it. He stepped carefully down the narrow path, keeping close to the rock wall. His hand rested near the rifle slung across his back, though he doubted it would help against whatever created that strange blue glow. The deeper he went, the clearer the hum became. It was steady now, not loud but constant. Elias rounded a bend in the canyon and froze. Dust stood calmly near a rock shelf. The horse lifted his head and gave a soft snort as if greeting an old friend. Relief flooded through Elias so strongly his knees nearly gave out. "Dust!" he breathed. He moved forward quickly, placing a hand on the horse's neck. Dust looked healthy, no injuries, no fear, but the woman was not on the saddle. Elias turned sharply, scanning the canyon walls. That was when he saw her. She stood a few steps away, no longer weak, no longer struggling. She stood straight. Her movements were calm and steady. The cloth he had wrapped around her head was gone. The cut on her temple had vanished. Even the swelling in her ankle was gone. She looked stronger than she had in the desert, stronger than seemed possible. Elias stared at her, unsure if he was seeing truth or exhaustion playing tricks on him. "You returned," she said softly. Her English was careful but clear. Elias swallowed. "I came to check if you made it." She gave a faint smile. "You gave your only horse." He glanced at Dust. "He found you safe. That's what matters." She stepped aside slightly. Behind her, deeper in the canyon, the blue glow pulsed brighter. Elias followed her gaze, and his breath caught. Half hidden within the canyon wall was something that did not belong in the desert. It was smooth, metallic, curved like no tool or wagon part he had ever seen. The surface shimmered faintly, as if it were made of liquid light hardened into shape. It was not large like a building, but it was too precise to be natural rock. "What is that?" Elias asked quietly. The woman turned back to him. "It is older than this land as you know it." Her eyes reflected the blue glow. "My people guard this canyon," she continued. "For generations. We were told it came from the sky long ago. We do not worship it. We do not use it. We protect it." Elias felt a chill despite the warm air. "From who?" "From those who searched the stars for what was left behind." The hum deepened, almost as if responding to her words. Elias stepped closer to the object, careful but drawn by curiosity. The surface seemed alive, faint lines moving within it like slow lightning trapped under glass. "You were hurt protecting this?" he asked. She nodded. "Men came with tools. They struck the outer shell. They thought it was buried treasure. They damaged a part of it." Elias remembered the miners talking in town. Gold made men foolish. "What happens if it's damaged?" he asked. She looked toward the sky. "It sends a signal." As if on cue, the blue glow brightened and a thin beam of light shot upward between the canyon walls, silent and straight, disappearing into the open sky. Elias stepped back in shock. The beam faded quickly, but the hum grew stronger. "They already answered," she said quietly. "Who answered?" Elias demanded. She met his eyes. "Not guardians." A low vibration passed through the canyon floor, so slight it might have been missed by anyone not standing still. Elias felt it in his boots. "You sent my horse back," he said suddenly. "Why?" "I did not send him," she replied. "He returned when the signal strengthened. Animals feel what humans ignore." Elias looked at Dust again. The horse was calm but alert, as if aware of something approaching from far away. The woman stepped closer to Elias. "You showed sacrifice without knowing reward," she said. "That matters," he frowned. "I just did what was right." She studied him carefully. "Few do." The canyon darkened as evening approached. Shadows grew long and sharp along the rock walls. Then Elias saw it. High above, beyond the canyon rim, a shape moved against the fading sky. It was not a bird. It was too smooth, too steady. Another shape appeared beside it, then a third. They glided without flapping, without noise. Elias felt his heartbeat quicken. "What are they?" he whispered. Hunters, she answered. The word hung heavy in the air. The shape circled once, then began to descend beyond the canyon ridge. Elias' mind raced. He had no plan for this. No army, no town to call for help. Only himself and the woman beside him. He looked at her. If they come for this, we can't just stand here. Her eyes hardened, not with fear, but with resolve. No, we cannot. A distant, low sound echoed from above, like metal slicing through air. Elias adjusted the strap of his rifle, even though he knew it would do little against flying machines from the sky. "Tell me what to do," he said. The blue glow pulsed again, stronger now. The woman stepped toward the metallic structure and placed her hand against it. The surface shimmered brighter beneath her touch. "We do not fight them with strength," she said. "We fight them with time." Time for what? For the true signal to awaken. The hum shifted in tone, rising slowly like a song building toward its first note. Above them, shadows passed over the canyon rim. The hunters were close. Elias tightened his grip and stood beside her, facing the narrow path that led into the canyon. He had given away everything the night before. Now he realized the desert had not taken from him. It had brought him here, and whatever was coming down from the sky, it would not find this canyon undefended. The sky above the canyon darkened, even though the sun had not fully set. Elias stood beside the Apache woman as the strange shapes lowered from the sky. They did not flap like birds. They did not roar like storms. They moved smoothly, silently, like shadows sliding across glass. 3 of them hovered beyond the canyon rim. Then one descended slowly into view. It was shaped like a curved blade, long and smooth, with no visible wheels or wings. A faint red light glowed along its edges. The air around it shimmered, bending the heat waves into strange patterns. Elias felt his mouth go dry. Dust shifted behind him but did not run. The woman stepped slightly forward. Her face was calm, but her eyes were alert. "They search for abandoned star machines," she said quietly. "They do not care who stands in their way." Elias glanced at her. "And we are standing in the way." "Yes." The hovering craft lowered until it stopped above the canyon floor, maybe 50 feet away. A thin beam of pale light scanned across the rocks, moving slowly, carefully, like a hand feeling in the dark. When the beam touched the metallic structure in the canyon wall, the hum deepened. The hunters had found what they were looking for. A small section of the craft opened silently. From within, a tall figure stepped down on a narrow platform of light. Elias expected a monster. Instead, he saw something shaped almost like a person, but not quite. The figure wore smooth, dark armor that reflected no light. Its face was hidden behind a curved mask that glowed faintly from within. Its movements were precise, without wasted motion. It did not rush. It did not speak, it simply observed. More figures followed it down, 3 in total. They spread out slowly, scanning the canyon walls. Elias felt his heartbeat pounding in his ears. His rifle felt small in his hands. He knew a bullet would not stop something like this. The woman leaned closer to him. "We must keep them from touching the core," she whispered. "Core?" Elias asked. "The heart inside the shell." The hum from the structure shifted again, like a drumbeat growing stronger. One of the armored figures stepped toward the metallic surface. A thin device extended from its wrist, glowing red. Elias did not wait. He moved. He grabbed a loose rock from the canyon floor and hurled it toward the opposite wall. It struck hard, echoing loudly through the narrow space. The armored figures turned at once, their heads snapping toward the sound. Elias moved again, slipping behind a tall rock pillar. He motioned for the woman to circle the other way. The canyon was narrow and full of sharp turns. Elias had walked enough desert to understand terrain. If he could not defeat them, he could confuse them. The figures advanced toward the place where the rock had landed. Their red scanning beams cut through the darkness. Elias climbed a small ledge and kicked down a pile of loose stones. They crashed loudly against the canyon floor. Again, the figures turned. They were strong but not fast. They were careful. That gave Elias an idea. He ran along the narrow ledge and dropped behind another bend in the rock. He picked up Dust's saddlebag, which had been left near the entrance. Inside was a small lantern and a flask of oil. He lit the lantern quickly and placed it deep inside a crack in the canyon wall. Then he poured a thin line of oil along the ground leading away from it. He moved fast but steady. When one of the armored figures came around the corner, its red beam caught the lantern glow in the crack. It stepped toward it. Elias fired one shot, not at the figure, but at the oil line. The spark caught instantly. A thin wall of flame raced along the oil, rising in a sudden burst of heat and light. The armored figure stepped back sharply. The flame did not harm it, but it blocked the narrow path. The canyon filled with smoke and light. The hum from the metallic structure grew louder. Behind the fire, the woman stood before the glowing shell. She placed both hands against it and closed her eyes. Blue light spread beneath her palms. The surface shifted, lines of energy flowing like rivers beneath ice. The other two armored figures moved quickly now. They advanced toward her, stepping through smoke and heat without fear. Elias jumped down from the ledge and ran to intercept them. He fired another shot at the canyon wall above them, dislodging a heavy stone. The rock crashed down, forcing one figure to step aside. The other raised its arm. A thin beam of red light shot toward Elias. He dove behind a rock. The beam sliced across the stone, leaving a glowing mark but not breaking through. Elias felt the heat from it against his face. He realized something important then. They were not here to destroy everything. They were trying to secure the object. That meant they would avoid causing too much damage to the canyon itself. He used that. He ran along the rock wall, staying close to the metallic structure. If they fired wildly, they risked harming the very thing they came for. The woman's voice rose softly behind him. She was speaking words he did not understand. The blue glow intensified, spreading higher into the canyon air. The armored leader stepped forward and aimed its red beam at the structure. Before it could fire, the hum shifted into a sharp tone. A pulse of blue light exploded outward from the metallic shell. It was not violent, it was powerful. The wave passed through Elias like wind through grass, knocking him backward but not hurting him. When the light reached the armored figures, they froze. Their red lights flickered. The hovering craft above the canyon shook slightly as if struck by invisible force. The woman's eyes opened. They reflected bright blue now. "The signal is correcting," she said firmly. The metallic shell began to open, not outward like a door, but inward, folding space itself in a way Elias could not fully understand. Inside, a sphere of brilliant light formed. The armored figures attempted to move again, but their movements slowed, as if the air had grown thick around them. Above the canyon, a new light appeared. It was brighter than the hunters' ships. It descended quickly, like a falling star that did not burn. Elias shielded his eyes. The new craft was larger, smoother, glowing with steady white-blue light. It hovered above the canyon rim, and a beam of pure light descended between the walls. When the beam touched the metallic shell, the sphere inside pulsed once more. The armored hunters staggered backward. Their craft emitted a sharp tone. Then, without warning, they retreated. The figures dissolved into columns of red light that shot upward into their hovering ship. The curved blade craft rose quickly and sped away across the darkening sky. Silence returned. The blue glow softened. The white-blue craft above remained. Elias slowly pushed himself up from the canyon floor. His chest rose and fell heavily. Dust stood near the entrance, calm again. The woman stepped back from the structure. The bright light in her eyes faded to normal. "It is done," she said quietly. Elias looked up at the white-blue ship above. "Who are they?" She watched the glowing craft. "The ones who were meant to answer the beacon." The beam from the guardian craft lingered for a moment longer. Then, slowly, the metallic shell in the canyon sealed itself again, smooth and quiet. The hum faded to a gentle whisper. The beam lifted and disappeared. The white-blue craft ascended silently into the night sky, becoming just another bright star among many. Elias stood in the canyon, breathing hard. The desert wind returned, soft and familiar. He looked at the woman. "Is it over?" She nodded. "For now." The canyon was safe. But Elias understood something new. He had walked into the desert thinking he had lost everything. Now he realized he had stepped into something far larger than himself. And it was not finished with him yet. The desert was quiet again. Only the wind whispered across the sand and rocks. The stars stretched overhead, bright and steady, as if nothing unusual had ever happened. Elias Boone leaned against a rock, trying to catch his breath. Dust nuzzled his shoulder softly, and the horse's calm presence reminded him that not everything was lost. Yana stepped out from the canyon, the blue glow of the metallic shell now dimmed, leaving only a faint shimmer in the rock. She looked strong, confident, and peaceful, the opposite of the weak, injured woman he had found days before. "You did well," she said softly. "The Guardians answered. They followed the true signal." Elias rubbed his forehead. "I still don't understand. Why me?" "Why did they respond because of what I did?" Yana smiled faintly. The beacon responds to choice, courage, and sacrifice. You gave everything without asking for reward. That is why it activated fully. You saved my life without thinking of yourself. That made you part of this. Elias glanced at Dust, then back at her. I didn't have much to give, just a horse, my only horse. Exactly, she said. That is why it mattered. The canyon remained quiet. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Then a soft hum began again, not from the shell this time, but from the desert around them. A light shone faintly on the horizon. It grew steadily brighter, and Elias realized it was not natural. From the distance, a ship descended. Unlike the hunters from before, this ship was larger, smoother, with a gentle glow that filled the canyon as it landed. A ramp extended silently to the ground, and a figure stepped out. Elias instinctively reached for his rifle, but Ayana held up a hand. Wait. They are not like the others. The figure approached, tall, wearing smooth white armor that reflected the starlight. Its face was covered, but the aura around it was calm, powerful, and wise. Elias Boone, it said in a voice that was firm yet gentle. You have done what few could. You chose to save a life over yourself. You have passed the trial of the desert and the beacon. Elias blinked. Trial? I didn't know there was a trial. I just did what I had to do. That is why you succeeded, the figure replied. Most act with greed, fear, or hesitation. You acted with courage, and your choice was pure. The Guardians are here to reward not with gold or weapons, but with purpose. Elias frowned. Purpose? What does that mean? The figure gestured toward the canyon, where the metallic shell shimmered faintly. This land, the canyon, the desert beyond, they need protectors. Not warriors, not rulers, not kings. People who choose others over themselves, people who act without thought for personal gain. You, Elias Boone, have proven you are such a person. The Guardians offer you guidance to rebuild this land. You may choose to leave or to stay. The choice is yours. He looked at Ayana. She stood silently beside the shell, her eyes calm but expectant. He thought of Dust, waiting patiently, the only creature that had never judged him, never questioned him. I want to stay, Elias said finally. If this land needs protection, I will stay. I can't leave it in the hands of anyone else. Yana nodded, a soft smile forming. Then the Guardians will aid you. The white-armored figure extended its hand. From the palm, a soft blue light spread over the canyon. It swept across the rocks, filling dry crevices with water. Dust sniffed at the newly wet soil, ears flicking. Small plants pushed through cracks in the canyon floor, green against the red stone. Elias stepped back in awe. The desert, dry and unforgiving for years, began to breathe again. Streams of water trickled down narrow paths, filling hidden pools. The canyon walls reflected the blue glow, creating a strange, beautiful light all around. This is incredible, Elias whispered. The land, it's alive again. The figure nodded. The Guardians restore what is needed when a pure heart protects it. But remember, protection is not just for the land. It is for life itself. Every choice you make matters. Yana reached for Elias' hand. You do not stand alone anymore. Together we can care for this place. Elias looked at her, at Dust, at the canyon now alive with flowing water and soft greenery. He thought of the hunters, of the strange glowing shell, of the nights walking alone in the desert with only hope to guide him. And he realized something. Purpose was more valuable than gold, more meaningful than wealth. He nodded. Then we stay, we rebuild, and we protect. The white-armored figure's form began to shimmer. Its voice echoed once more. Guardians will watch, but the choice remains yours. Act with courage, act with heart. That is all that is required. With that, the figure stepped back into the ship. The craft lifted silently, disappearing into the starry sky. The glow of the beacon faded slowly, leaving a faint shimmer in the canyon walls. Elias turned to Ayana. I never thought that helping someone, giving away Dust, could lead to this. I thought I was losing everything. Ayana shook her head. You were gaining what mattered most: purpose, strength, the chance to protect something greater than yourself. Dust nuzzled Elias again, as if agreeing. Elias reached down to stroke him, grateful that the horse had returned and stayed safe throughout the trials. The night air grew cooler, filled with the scent of damp earth and green plants. For the first time in years, Elias felt peace. The desert was alive, the canyon alive, and so was he. Over the next weeks, Elias and Ayana worked to restore the surrounding land. Streams were widened, pools cleaned, small plants nurtured. Dust carried supplies through the canyon, moving with strength and ease. Each day, the desert seemed to bloom a little more. Birds returned. Small animals appeared cautiously at first, then with confidence. Elias learned the canyon paths, the hidden nooks, the dry riverbeds that held water after storms. Yana taught him the stories of her people, of the guardians, of the strange technology hidden beneath the canyon. She did not speak of magic, only of responsibility and balance. Together, they built a small homestead near the canyon mouth, not for comfort but for purpose. A place to watch, care, and protect. One morning, Elias awoke to find a soft breeze carrying scents of wild grass and wet earth. Dust whinnied and ran toward the canyon floor. Elias followed, and Ayana was already there, standing beside the metallic shell. The sunlight glinted on the faint shimmer of its surface, no longer threatening, only peaceful. Yana turned to him. The guardians will not return often. They only answer when truly needed, but their presence is felt in the balance we maintain. Elias smiled. Then we have work to do every day, she nodded. Together they walked through the canyon, dust trotting beside them. Elias realized he had never felt more alive. He had faced fear, danger, and the unknown, and emerged with something greater than he could have imagined: hope, purpose, and partnership. As the sun rose higher, it touched the canyon walls, sending long shadows over the land that was now alive with water and green life. For the first time in years, Elias felt that the desert was home, not lonely, not harsh, not endless, but alive, waiting, and full of promise. And in the sky above, a single star glowed brighter than the others, a quiet reminder that courage, choice, and sacrifice always mattered. Elias Boone, the man who gave away his only horse, had gained more than he ever dreamed possible. He had a friend in Ayana, a protector in dust, and a home in a land renewed by purpose and heart. The desert was no longer a place of loss. It was a place of life, of guardianship, and of infinite possibility. And together, Elias and Ayana watched over it, ready for whatever came next, with the knowledge that the greatest gift was not treasure or power, but the choice to act with courage, even when the cost was everything.